Red skies hung above the dying world of Vylor, thick with ash and poison. Towering spires of once-proud alien cities now stood like skeletons, broken and blackened by years of fire and storm. The air was heavy, each breath a struggle. The oceans had turned dark, their life long gone. From space, Vylor looked like a bleeding wound in the stars scarred, silent and forgotten. But not everyone on the planet had given up. Inside a cracked observatory buried under the last standing mountain, an old Valari scientist named Morel struggled to keep the ancient signal dish online. The roof leaked. Sparks fell from broken cables. He moved slowly, each step forced by willpower more than strength. Around him, dozens of frightened children huddled near heating panels, coughing, weak, their eyes dim. Their parents were already gone. Disease had taken them along. With the food, the cities, the hope, the planetary government had collapsed 2 years ago. All that was left was Morel and the whisper of a dream. He adjusted the dish's angle with trembling fingers. The signal amplifier sparked to life barely. It had enough power for one final message. Only one. A universal SOS, aimed at any species that might still care. Morel spoke in broken galactic common, his voice weak but clear. This is Vylor. Our home is dying. We do not ask for war. We do not ask for riches. Only life. If anyone can hear us, please, help us. Our skies burn. Our children cannot breathe. Please. The signal ended. Morel slumped back in his chair, staring at the stars above. He had no idea if anyone would hear, no idea if the galaxy even remembered them. Vylor had once been proud, advanced, curious, peaceful. But in the end, even the most advanced societies fall when the planet itself turns against them. He closed his eyes. 3 days passed. No reply. Then the stars changed. It began as a flicker and odd movement above the horizon. Morel opened his eyes. His old equipment buzzed with static, then froze. Power surged. Lights flared. The children cried. Out. He rushed to the main screen and saw it. A ship no many. Ship stopped black, silent, angular, unlike anything Vylor had ever seen. They didn't come with greetings. They didn't broadcast words. They came like judgment. Massive. Vessels slid into orbit, blocking out the sun with their hulls. The biggest one bore no flag, no mark. Just a long line of symbols etched in glowing white across the underbelly Terran standard. Earth's language. But it wasn't a welcome. It was a warning. The people of Vylor didn't know how to react, those few who remained alive in the underground. Cities watched the sky with both hope and fear. Help had come. But it came too strong, too fast, too cold. The skies now held the largest military force ever seen on Vylor. And still, not a single word was spoken. Morel tried to open communications. He sent greeting signals, beacons of peace, standard emergency responses. No reply. Instead, small black pods began to fall from orbit. They landed in the ruined cities softly, precisely. From them emerged soldiers, tall and human, dressed in dark armor that shimmered with strange light. They carried no banners. They made no speeches. They simply moved through the ruins, scanning, mapping, taking samples, recording, and ignoring the desperate voices that cried out to them. One survivor ran toward a soldier, screaming for help. The soldier raised a hand and the man fell asleep instantly, unconscious, unharmed, but silenced. The message was clear. This was not a rescue. This was an investigation. Morel watched in horror. These weren't doctors. These weren't diplomats. These were soldiers trained to erase threats, not save them. But why? Vylor had no weapons left, no armies, no power. Unless Earth believed Vylor was hiding something in orbit, aboard. The command ship Resolute Mercy, Admiral Caden Voss watched the planet spin beneath him. His face was calm, unreadable, but his thoughts were a storm. The transmission they had received wasn't just a distress call, it was a trigger. Something deep in the Terran AI defense grid had flagged the Valari signal as dangerous, not because of the words but because of the origin. Centuries ago, Earth had faced betrayal. Back when humanity first reached the stars, the Valari had been allies, or so Earth thought. They shared tech, opened trade, promised peace. But in the shadows, they had tested weapons that manipulated gravity itself. And one of those experiments nearly tore open the fabric of space over a Terran colony. Millions had died. Earth had survived, but it had not forgotten. The truth had been buried for the sake of peace. Sealed. Diplomats silenced until now. Now, Earth had heard a call from a world it thought dead, a world it had chosen to forget, and so they didn't answer with kindness. They came to find. The truth did, to see if the Valari had lied their way into sympathy again. And if so, Earth would do what it always did when a threat rose from ashes, crush it before it could breathe again. Morel stared up as the Terran ships moved into formation. Above the planet, the signals changed. Something was being activated. Humans were preparing, something large. The children behind him asked if the ships would bring medicine. Morel didn't answer. Instead, he turned back to the console and opened a locked feeler recording from years ago. A secret stored deep within Velor's core data. Something no outsider had ever seen. A truth that might explain the fire falling from the sky. The file showed a test site. A machine. A failed experiment. Gravity torn loose. A rift in the stars. And Earth's colony. Burning, he whispered, "Oh no, they never forgot. We thought they did. We hoped." Outside, the sky cracked with the roar of energy weapons powering up, and for the first time Rel realized humanity hadn't come to help. They had come to finish what the Valari started long ago. The black-armored Terran soldiers moved through Velor like ghosts made of steel. They spoke rarely, and when they did, it was only to one another in clipped code words. Civilians who approached were ignored or sedated. No aid stations, no supplies, no warmth. Fleet had not come to rescue. They had come to investigate, to judge, and if necessary, to cleanse. Admiral Caden Voss stood aboard the Resolute Mercy with his arms behind his back, eyes fixed on the data streaming from the surface. Images, scans, molecular breakdowns of air, soil, blood. He didn't blink as his officers presented the findings. Radiation signatures match pre-collapse weapon tests, Lieutenant Rana reported. We've confirmed gravitational distortion. In the lower atmosphere, it's faint, but unmistakable. This planet once played with forces it should never have touched. Caden nodded slowly, and the children, unarmed, malnourished, sick, no implants, no exposure to weapon tech. So they're not the ones we came for, Caden said quietly. They're what's left behind. Low Velors. Skies had grown darker. Not from clouds, but from the sheer size of Earth's warships hovering overhead. Massive carriers blocked the sun, their engines humming with restrained fury. Civilians watched from rooftops and ruined towers as the soldiers moved in lines, sweeping districts. Opening data vaults sealed for decades. One such vault was buried beneath what used to be the Valari Ministry of Energy, a glass building now, shattered into bones. Terran engineers broke through the stone and steel, revealing a chamber untouched by time. Inside, they found Project Omega Dawn, and with it, the truth. Data logs showed Valari scientist Seeger proud testing an unstable gravitational device nearly a century ago. They believed it would open safe wormholes, bring faster travel, change life itself. But what they opened instead was a rift near Earth's colony on Halcyon 3. The fabric of space twisted, the colony vanished. 2 million humans gone in seconds. No. Warning. No apology, no compensation. The Valari buried the truth. Falsified reports, blamed solar flares, and Earth. Quietly labeled them a dormant threat. A wound they never forgot. And now, that wound had screamed again. Earth answered not with forgiveness but with fire. Morel watched it all unfold from his mountain observatory. The Terran soldiers had found the files. He could feel it. He heard the sonic charges ripping vaults open miles away. Every second that passed made it clearer. Earth hadn't come to save them. They'd come to finish a war Velar had once tried to pretend never happened. He activated his terminal again. Not to send a message, to open one. a code locked in his personal files. Something only he had held for years. A confession. His mentor, long dead, had once recorded the truth. A video hidden inside the most secure node on Villar Morel played. It now, alone. A trembling voice spoke from the past. We lied. The project was never just a test. It was a weapon. We meant to show Earth we were not to be underestimated, but it spiraled beyond our control. The colony's destruction was not an accident. It was a side effect. We chose silence. And now, we will burn for it. Rel sat still. There were no lies left, only consequences. In the main plaza of Villiers, last city, a battalion of Terran soldiers stood in silent formation. Their commander, Captain Harlan Duve, dressed the crowd of gathered survivors, most too weak to stand for long. You sent a signal asking for help, he said, voice amplified. But Earth does not forget the price of betrayal. Cries echoed from the civilians. We have reviewed your archives. We know the truth now. We are not here to conquer. We are here to decide whether your people deserve to continue existing. A mother stepped forward, shaking. But we're not the ones who made that choice. That was generations ago. We're dying already. Isn't that punishment enough? Harlan didn't flinch. Earth's judgment isn't about revenge, about remembrance. What we let live, we must trust not to rise again. Another voice called out. It was Merle, now walking with a limp, but fire in his eyes. Then let me speak for them. The crowd parted. The Terrans raised their weapons, but Harlan raised a hand, pausing them. Speak. Merle stood before the soldiers and survivors both. We are guilty, not all of us, not these children, but our blood carries the crime. Have no excuse for what our scientists did. We tried to bury the past, but Earth never did. I understand that now. He looked up at the looming ship above, but what you must see is that we are no longer who we were. This is a graveyard. We have no army, no power, only ash and regret. If Earth chooses to burn us to the ground, so be it. But if mercy still exists in Terran hearts, then let us live long enough to teach the next generation the truth. Silence. Then Harlan received a private transmission from Admiral Voss. Record his words, scan him, verify emotion markers, compare to records. Seconds passed. Then came the reply. He is telling the truth. He regrets. And Voss is next. Words changed everything. Give them food. Give them air. But leave a beacon. A warning. The dead can be forgiven, but lies never will be. The Terran fleet did not fire. Instead, they opened their lower decks. Supplies were dropped, medical bots deployed, and just before the Resolute Mercy turned to leave orbit, launched one final pod inside it. A steel monument, etched in every major. Language. Halcyon 3. 2 million voices lost to silence. May memory always be louder than lies. And as Earth's fleet disappeared into the stars once more, Morel wept not from fear, but because judgment had come, chosen to remember, not destroy, but mercy was not forgetfulness. Earth would never forget again. Night returned to Villar with a strange stillness, the kind of quiet that didn't feel like peace, but like something holding its breath. Earth's Armada had left orbit, most of it at least, pulling back like a storm that had shown its fury and then vanished. Only a few Terran scout vessels remained behind, circling in low orbit, their surveillance beams scanning the ruins for movement, radiation. Anything unnatural? Rel believed it was over. The truth was confessed. The punishment had not come. In fire, but far from the cities beyond, the ruined mountain ranges and poisoned seas, Villar's secrets were not done speaking, because in the south, beneath the wasteland known as the Dust Belt, a signal began to rise, low at first, a deep thrum, like the heartbeat of something not quite alive, something that remembered it had been forgotten, aboard. The lone Terran corvette Watcher's blade, Orbiting Villar's dark side, First Officer Marin Tess reviewed the sensor data for the 10th time. What is this? She murmured, staring at the screen. Unknown energy bloom. Originating from under Sector Thatanine, replied the AI. Marin leaned forward. That region's dead. We confirmed nothing left breathing. Negative, the AI responded. However, gravimetric distortion is rising. Unnatural pattern. Possible artificial origin. She tapped her cum. Captain, you're going to want to see this. 3 hours later, 2 dropships screamed toward the Dust Belt. Engines roaring as they descended through the ash-filled sky. What they found wasn't ruins. It was a structure. Massive. Buried beneath glassed sands. Hidden deep underground. Shielded for decades. It had survived the collapse of Villar's cities, the environmental disasters, the power failures, and worst of all, it was active. The soldiers who entered the structure wore high-level radiation suits. They stepped through ancient Velari symbols glowing faintly along the walls. Holograms flickered to life as they passed maps of the galaxy, strange mathematical symbols, gravitational simulations. This isn't a base, one soldier whispered. This is a lab, and in the center of the chamber, they found the rift core. Not a model, not a memory. The original device that had caused the Halcyon 3 disaster, still intact, still warm, still humming with power. Admiral Voss received the report within minutes. He didn't speak. He simply stared at the image on his screen. Sphere of metal wrapped in spiraling rings pulsing with unstable energy. He recognized it instantly. Earth scientists had reconstructed the explosion based on residual data from the lost colony, and here it was. Not destroyed, not buried, not forgotten. Why? He asked out loud. Why would they keep it running? The answer came from an old voice where he had arrived at the site in a shaking Terran transport, escorted by 2 Marines. They didn't keep it running, he said as he stepped out. It kept itself alive. Everyone turned. Morel looked old, weaker than before. But something in his eyes had returned purpose. This machine wasn't just a weapon, it was a gate. A way to reach through the folds of space. The original team believed it had intelligence. Or something close. We tried to shut it down after the incident, but it resisted. Admiral Voss narrowed his eyes. You built a sentient weapon? Morel shook his head. We didn't build it. We found it. Or a piece of it. An asteroid. We integrated it into our research. You used alien tech you didn't understand. You tied it to gravity itself. And you pointed it near an Earth colony, Voss growled. Morel didn't defend himself. He simply said, I think it was never meant to stay dormant. I think it's been waiting for what? Asked Marin. Taz. Morel looked at the sphere. Again, to finish what it started. The soldiers moved to secure the chamber, activating Terran lockdown protocols. But before they could install the stasis field, the core reacted. The lights flared, the air shimmered, and every human in the room suddenly heard a voice not through their ears, but inside their minds. I was forgotten. I was left in silence. Now you return. Will you open the door? One soldier dropped to his knees, bleeding from the nose. Another screamed, clutching his helmet. The AI systems on board the Watcher's blade began to fail one by one. Shut it down. Voss barked. Now. But Morel raised a hand. Wait, it's speaking. Don't you see? It remembers. That thing is a rift core, Voss snapped. It killed millions. It tore space apart. Morel looked back at him, strangely calm, and yet it wants to talk. If it's alive then, maybe. Maybe it's not just a weapon. Maybe it's a prisoner. Silence. Then the core pulsed again. You feared me, but I was only the key. The door was behind you. And then, the sky over the Dust Belt opened. Not with fire, not with ships, but with a hole in reality. A ring of light shimmered above the deserts. Silent, perfect. No radiation, no sound. Inside the ring, stars, unfamiliar planets, twisted, and something watching from the other side, something old, something not born of Velar, not of Earth, not of any charted race, something that had been waiting behind the veil, and the signal from the rift core changed again. Not a whisper now, but a message, a simple one. The others heard the cry too, but they are not here to help, and Earth realized. Too late. Velar's SOS didn't just go to them, it went to everyone, and the thing that answered next wasn't human, it wasn't Velar. It was hunger given form, and it was already stepping through the gate. Above the dust belt, the ring of light hung in the sky like a wound in the stars, spinning, glowing with colors that didn't belong to this galaxy. Around its edge, the clouds twisted. Gravity faltered. Birds dropped from the sky. Winds howled in reverse, and something was coming through. From orbit, Admiral Voss watched in silence. The holoscreen showed the rift expanding by meters every second. The energy reading spiking past anything Earth had encountered since the black hole siege of Mars. But this wasn't a black hole. This was alive. He turned to his comms, Marin. Get every civilian off that planet. Now. Captain Marin Tess responded instantly from the Watcher's blade. Already in motion, sir? But you're not going to like this? Some Velari are refusing to leave. Voss narrowed his eyes. Why? They say it's a prophecy. They say the gate has to open. Voss clenched his fists, and they die with it. On the ground, the sky grew darker, not from night, but from wrongness. Light moved in ways it shouldn't. Shapes flickered in the clouds, tall and thin and shifting. Then the first form stepped through. It was tall, at least 3 stories, but it didn't walk. It floated hovering silently a meter above the ground, its limbs moving like cloth in water. Its body was made of black metal and pulsing light, faceless. But watching it didn't roar. It didn't strike. It just looked. And the air screamed. Morel dropped to his knees as his vision blurred. His thoughts spiraled. He saw flashes of Velar history, then human memories, then images that couldn't be his at all. Stars dying. Cities devouring themselves. People worshipping the thing that now stood on Velar's soil. The Terran soldiers opened fire. Aredon? Nothing. Touched it. The being didn't dodge, didn't raise a shield. It just wasn't hit. Like the universe refused to let the bullets connect, and then it moved. One soldier vanished mid-sentence. Another screamed as his helmet filled with water from nowhere. A third simply collapsed, every memory in his mind erased. His eyes empty. Fall back, Marin ordered. But it was too late. This wasn't a battle. It was correction. Admiral Voss knew one thing. If this being reached the rift core, if it connected with the machine that tore Halcyon 3 apart, it might not just destroy Velar. It could. Rewrite space itself. Activate Protocol S, he said quietly. Marin paused. Sir, that's a full-spectrum sterilization order. There are still civilians on the planet Veleri children. They open the door. We close it. One way or where? Another. Understood. The fleet began charging the main cannon Oblivion Spear, Earth's most feared weapon. It had only been fired once, against a Dyson shard off Gliese 581. That blast carved a moon in half. Now it was aimed at Vel. Rel stumbled into the rift core chamber, breathing hard. He saw the black being hovering above it. Its long arms extended over the machine. Symbols floated between them, glowing in the air. Morel didn't run. He stepped forward and shouted, "Stop!" The being turned slowly, and for the first time, Morel heard its voice, not with ears, but inside his soul. You invited us, you cried into the dark, and we answered as we have before. What are you? Morel demanded, his voice shaking. We are what is left when stars forget. We are what returns when guilt fades. We are memory-denied form, and we are home. It reached for the rift core, and at that moment a blinding white beam tore through the clouds. The Oblivion Spear fired. It struck Velar. A clean, perfect line of destruction. The entire dust belt disappeared in a breath. The mountains melted. The rift ring shattered. and morale was gone. Silence. The dust settled. No screams, no life. From orbit, the surface was now glass. Marn whispered. Did it work? Yes. The sensors buzzed, then cleared. The rift core was gone. The being gone. No trace left, only silence. Admiral Voss lowered his head. Log it. Log what, sir? His voice was cold. Viller. Sterilized. Cause. Terminal anomaly breach. 3 days later, in deep space, aboard a distant Terran station, something strange happened. A Terran child, born blind, suddenly looked up at her mother and whispered in a voice not her own, "We are not finished. Your mercy was fire, but your guilt remains." And guilt opens more doors. The lights flickered, and far beyond Earth, something stirred in the void. Not defeated, just delayed. The Velar incident was officially labeled a containment success. The public heard nothing beyond vague. Phrases like anomalous gravitational instability neutralized and humanitarian efforts regrettably aborted. No details, no survivors. The Terran High Command sealed the files behind 12 layers of clearance, and every soldier who had seen what came through the rift was reassigned, debriefed, and sworn to silence. But some nightmares don't stay buried, because the truth wasn't. Just on Velar, it was also buried on Earth, and now it was waking up in a heavily restricted vault beneath the Terran defense. Archive in Geneva chamber, deeper than any city and older than any war doctor Asha Korin, stood before a sealed black door. She had never expected to be summoned here. She was a theoretical physicist, not a soldier. But after the Velar event, her access level changed overnight. The man beside her was General Huxley Kane, one of the last living veterans of the Halcyon. Disaster. You knew Velar would open it again, she said. Staring at the symbols glowing on the vault, we hoped they wouldn't, Huxley replied. But we planned for the moment they did. Then why didn't we stop them? His voice was cold, because Earth did it first. The vault hissed. Inside was not a weapon, not a computer, but a mirror, floating in anti-gravity untouched by time, suspended in a perfect vacuum. It was black, perfectly smooth. It showed stars that didn't exist, a reflection of something else, where no human light had ever shone. The first core, Huxley said, recovered from the ruins of Halcyon 3. It survived. Dr. Korin stepped closer. The mirror pulsed, and she heard a whisper. At you. Remember me? She froze. Did you hear that? Huxley nodded. We all hear it, eventually. Dr. Korin turned, eyes wide. You've kept this under Earth for how long? 72 years? Since the day Halcyon fell? We couldn't destroy it. We tried. It survives every weapon, every attempt to erase it. She looked at him, horror dawning. You didn't destroy it? No, he said. We studied it. She took a step back. You built weapons from this thing, used it to improve our warp tech, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. The short-range rift jump technology, the ghost signal jammers, the displacement armor, she whispered. It all came from this. He nodded once. You don't understand? She said, shaking. That thing on Villerwatt, if it didn't come because they called it? What if it came because we've been using it? Huxley's face was grim. I do understand. 3 light years away, aboard the Terran dreadnought Iron Memory, Admiral Voss received a secret transmission. It was a message that bypassed all channels. Not from Earth, not from any human source, but from deep space. From the edge of the Perseus Veil. The message was short, just 3 words. Spoken in Terran common, but not with a human voice. We are awake. Stood frozen as his officers stared. At the display, coordinates flashed below the message and charted, outside any patrol zone. Lieutenant Rana broke the silence. Should we alert High Command? Voss didn't answer right away, because part of him already knew. This wasn't over, and it hadn't started on Velar. It had started decades ago. When Earth tried to erase its shame and turned it into a weapon, Instead, the rift tech, the hybrid engines, the folded space gates, they were never clean, were built on something borrowed. Something that never gave permission. Something that had waited patiently while humanity grew arrogant. And now it was coming home, back on Earth. Dr. Corin ran the latest analysis of the core's energy pattern. What she saw made her blood run cold. It's pulsing in time with something, she said. What? Asked Huxley. She pointed to the data. A source. Not here. A larger core. Much larger. It's waking it up. Remotely. Huxley's comes buzzed. A new alert. Several simultaneous energy spikes across 4 Terran colonies, all centered on Terran-built rift drives. They weren't just waking up, they were activating, and no one knew what would happen. Next, in orbit around Vega 4, the mining colony, known as Hollow Reach, experienced a systems blackout. 3 minutes later, its artificial moon vanished. Not exploded, not moved, just ... erased. A perfect circle of space gone, like it had been cut out of reality. The remaining station transmitted one last signal before silence. It's not a weapon. It's a mouth. On the iron memory, Admiral Voss finally spoke. Recall the Death Fleet. Every ship, every system. Bring them back to Earth. But sir, no arguments, he said. We opened a door we didn't understand. Now we pay the price. He stared out at the stars. What came through Velar was just the scout. His voice dropped to a whisper. We haven't seen the real one yet. Far in the darkness beyond known space, in a system without a name, something vast uncurled. Its surface was like cracked glass. Its eyes were storms. Its breath, it bent starlight. It had waded through silence, waded through time, waded through lies. Now, Earth had used its bones long enough, and the Deathworlders were about to learn some things. Answer calls not with words, but with consumption. The darkness beyond mapped space had never been silent, just misunderstood. Ancient civilizations once called it the void between. Others named it the bleed, the divide, the whispering gulf. It was the space beyond starlight where time bent, where laws of reality thinned like worn paper. Now Earth knew the truth. The stars had been screaming all along. We just weren't listening, Admiral. Caden Voss stood alone on the bridge of the Iron Memory, Earth's flagship. The lights around him glowed red as DEFCON alerts echoed across the fleet. The news from Hollow Reach had shattered the illusion of safety. An entire moon gone. Not destroyed, not warped, just erased, like it had never been born. Voss stared at the holographic display. 6 colonies had gone dark in the past. 48 hours. 3 more showed unstable rift behavior in their core drives. And everywhere those drives existed, where Earth had built its future on rift-based techs, something alien was now responding. Not attacking, answering, because the technology, Earth, reverse-engineered from the first rift core wasn't just power, it was communication in every ship gate. And Drive had been talking back for decades without anyone realizing. Voss clenched his jaw. What's our strength? Fleet Commander Rena Zar grimly answered. 3 death fleets en route, 800 destroyers, 2 dreadnoughts, all rift drive, capable. He shook his head. We won't be using rift drives again. Shut them down. All of them. They're not ours. Never were. Her eyes widened. Without them, half the fleet won't make it in time. Then they die en route, but they die human. On Earth, beneath Geneva's hidden vaults, Dr. Asha Corin stared at the mirror core floating silently inside its containment cradle. The reflection had changed. It no longer showed warped stars or unknown nebulae. It now showed a face. Not human. Not symmetrical. A jagged thing. Like bone and fire fused into a skull-shaped planet, it blinked, and every instrument in the lab flatlined. She turned to General Huxley Kane. That's not just a rift being. That's a world. He nodded slowly. We believe it's the source. The first rift, she whispered. You mean it's alive? No, he said grimly. It's awake. And then the mirror pulsed once more. and a single word appeared across every Terran system, military, civilian, encrypted, offline. Return. The meaning was clear. Not a message, a command. The Death Fleet gathered above, Jupiter like a black halo, ships the size of cities. Drifted into formation old war machines, born from Earth's most ruthless designs, plasma-raked hulls, cyclonic cannon arrays, relativistic missiles. These were not peacekeepers. They were executioners, built during Earth's darkest wars. And yet, they had never faced anything like this. Inside the war room, aboard the dreadnought Hammer of Dawn, AI projections lit up as Admiral Voss entered. His voice was hard. Bring up projected incursion vectors. The room went quiet. Red lines began appearing on the star map, one after another. 20-7, breach points, then 60, then 123. They weren't attacking from one direction. They were coming from everywhere. Lieutenant Rana whispered, "They're using our own jump networks." Voss nodded. "Of course they are. We built our empire on stolen doorways. Now the landlords want them back." Commander Czar turned to him. "What's the plan?" Voss stared at the blinking map. "Draw them in. Bleed them. Fight with everything. We have. But tell every fleet captain no surrender. If you can't hold, you detonate." Pause. "And pray whatever's behind that gate can't breathe without a host." But even as Earth prepared its defenses, the first signs of collapse had already begun. In the Terran colony of Tharsis Reach, where a small research station studied unstable wormholes, the sky above the outpost cracked, not just the air, reality. A black spiral spun into existence mid-Earth slow, elegant, impossibly beautiful, and then burst. Tearing a hole in the desert, what crawled out was not metal. It was memory given shape. A creature made of facies Valari, human others, unknown, all melting into one another. It walked on no legs. It dragged nothing. It simply was, and it moved. Toward the station, like hunger incarnate. Before they could evacuate, the feed went dead. The final log, a voice whispering, "They wear the faces of the forgotten." In orbit. The first of Earth's outer defenses engaged. Battlecruisers locked on emerging rift signals and opened fire with anti-grav shells and kinetic warheads. Explosions lit up the void. For a moment, it looked like the Deathworlders would hold until the first Riftborn Titan stepped through, a creature larger than most ships. Made of obsidian plates and endless tendrils, emerged from the rift above Callisto. The cruisers opened fire. Their rounds passed through it. The Titan looked at them not with eyes, but with a hum, a ripple in gravity, and then three ships simply folded inward, compacted like toys in a child's hand. Admiral Voss stared in silence. No words, no curses, just a quiet realization. "This isn't war," he said. Commander Czar nodded. "It's a correction." Back on Earth, Dr. Corrin reviewed the ancient audio logs from the Halcyon disaster, buried in static old code. Distorted, but then she found it something no one had ever translated. The Rift's original message. Long. Before it turned violent, it was not a warning. It was not a threat. It was a plea. "You reached through fire. You pulled us into light. We are not your tools. Let us sleep, or let us end." They had begged, Earth had answered with greed. Now, it would pay in blood. Above the shattered moons of Jupiter, Earth's Death Fleet fought a war unlike any other. War not of nations or survival, but of consequences. Ships designed for planetary sieges were torn apart by beings that had no mass, no center, no pattern. Titans stepped through rift gates and melted holes with silence. Smaller creatures, shard-like and fractal, swarmed through AI cores and erased data like it had never existed. They weren't invading, they were rewriting, and still Earth fought, because Earth never surrendered. Admiral Caden Voss stood inside, the blacklit war core of the Iron Memory, its holographic map now a sea of red. Fleets were gone, colonies vanished. But it wasn't the loss of ships that haunted him, it was the shapes he saw in the void. They weren't random, they moved with memory, with intelligence, and most terrifying of all with familiarity. Are we seeing? He asked, pointing at the broken loop of light now spinning near Europa's orbit. Lieutenant Rana's voice trembled. That's Earth's original rift drive schematic. Say again? It's not a ship. It's a reflection, like something is projecting our own tech back at us, but warped. Admiral Voss stared at the glowing image, and he understood. These things don't just attack, he said. They absorb, learn, mirror. Everything we've created with stolen rift tech, they've taken it back, and now they use it to undo us. Commander Czar asked quietly, Then what do we have left? Looked at her and answered without blinking. Only what we didn't steal. On Earth, deep below Geneva's forgotten vaults, Dr. Asha Koren stared at the cracked mirror core. It no longer floated, it pulsed, glowed, wept light. And inside, it flashes of battles playing out across the stars. Ships dying, worlds unraveling. But also something else. A sequence. A signal. It looped again and again. Asha enhanced it. Frame by frame until the pattern became a code not alien. Human, old Earth tech. A forgotten protocol buried in a pre-rift. Backup AI system used only during the first outer colony expeditions. Wait, she whispered. This wasn't a warning. She leaned in closer. This was a response. General Huxley Kane stepped forward. Explain. She turned, her face pale. We always thought the Rift Core sent out something dangerous, that when it activated, it called the monsters. But what if? She swallowed. What if it called us? Huxley blinked. You mean yes? She said. The first rift didn't open from our side. It opened here because of a message from Earth. Long ago, some transmission, some experiment. We didn't listen. We didn't even know we sent it. But they heard it. Now they're following it back home. Far above, in the burning skies over Earth, the rift widened again, and something terrifying came through. Not a beast, not a god, but a ship one built in Earth style, shaped like a Terran dreadnought, but larger, older, wrong. Its hull bore markings of long-dead colonies. Its shape reflected Earth's own designs. But inside, it glowed with rift energy, pulsing with memories never recorded. Admiral Voss saw the readings. That's impossible, he whispered. Lieutenant Rana confirmed, Sir, the ship's ID tag. It matches the first dawn. The first dawn was lost 100 years ago, Voss said. No survivors, no logs. But here it was, returned, and inside it, a voice. We never died. We became, and now we return, not to punish, but to complete. On the surface of Earth, chaos spread. Rift shadows formed in the streets, mirror people flickering, whispering old regrets. Families saw lost children. Soldiers saw former comrades. The rift wasn't just physical anymore. It had breached memory, reality, one by one. AI systems began to go quiet, then cities, then power grids, and still, the glowing sky sang. You built your future on our graves. You climbed with our bones. You lit your homes with stolen light. Now that light is ours again, but in the heart of the chaos. Dr. Asha Koren discovered something the monsters hadn't expected. Buried beneath the mirror, Core's light was a choice or rift equation, not for destruction, but for containment. A self-collapse. A lock. Something the rift itself had left behind long ago. Why would they give us this? General Huxley asked. Asha's voice cracked. Because not all of them wanted this war. Some part of them still remembers mercy. Turn to him. But we have to sacrifice everything that uses rift energy. Every ship, every colony gate, every core. He nodded. I'll send the signal. Across the fleet, single command transmitted, shutdown protocol, ECL IPCL rift drives powered down, warp gates collapsed, energy systems reverted to archaic fusion tech. The result? Thousands of ships drifted dead in space. But so did the enemy, because they had adapted to our light, and without it, they lost their anchor, their form, their strength. Some screamed. Some simply blinked out of reality, but not all. Some held on, and one final rift opened above Earth. Larger than anything before, inside a tow world, a planet-sized being, cracked and bleeding rift energy, the sourced Admiral Voss whispered. This is it, the final judgment, and Earth had one shot left. The sky above Earth split like torn paper, and something unimaginable stepped through. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a god. It was a planet alive watching. Breathing, the source, its crust, looked like bone. Its oceans churned with liquid memory. Across, its skin were glowing vein star maps, ancient languages, and the shape of every Terran invention Earth had stolen from the rift. It had no face, and yet everyone felt it staring. Civilians fell to their knees. Soldiers gripped their weapons, though they knew they meant nothing. And in orbit, Admiral Voss stood aboard the powerless iron memory, surrounded by dead ships. Listening to the final broadcast from the source, we carried your hopes. We bore your minds. You fed on us, but you are still ours. Inside Geneva's deepest vault, Dr. Asha Koren finished decoding the collapse equation hidden inside the mirror core. It was not just a lock, it was a seed. Final weapon left behind by the first creators of the Rift who, long ago, had realized what they had become. They hadn't wanted war. They wanted rest. But Earth's hunger had reawakened the Rift's pain. And now, the only mercy left was to let the Rift die. The catch. The core needed a spark of mind willingly sacrificed, that had once touched the rift and survived. She turned to General Kane. You were there at Halcyon 3, she said. You survived what no one else did. You're the link. He nodded slowly. I always knew it would come back for me. She handed him the control module. It's your call. Above the Earth, the source began to descend. Continents cracked. Under the pressure of its pull, gravity bent. Time staggered. Rivers reversed, and still did not fire because it didn't need to. Its presence alone unraveled reality. Every memory ever tied to Rift technology, every ship, AI, weapon, or gate began to dissolve, as if the source was reclaiming itself. Memory by memory, Admiral Voss stood on the shattered bridge of his flagship, watching the end come, and then the stars froze. The rift pulsed, and a voice echoed. Through all of Earth, human and rift-born alike, one remembers, one chooses, one ends. Deep beneath the Earth, General Kane placed his hand on the core in that instant. He saw everything: Halcyon's fall, the creation of the first rift, the Valari experiments, Earth's arrogant theft, and then he saw something more. A version of Earth that had never taken from the rift, a galaxy that had never heard the scream, a quiet, peaceful place. He smiled. I remember. And he pressed. Activate. Above the world, the source stopped. Its skin began to flake light, leaking from its veins like bleeding stars. Its body cracked, folding inward, not in pain, but in release. The rift gates all over the galaxy flared and then collapsed. The monsters vanished. The shadows curled inward and blinked out. The mirror core shattered, flooding the vault with golden light, and Earth fell silent. It took weeks to assess the damage. Thousands of ships were lost. Colonies were gone. The rift technology that had powered Earth's rise was now dead, but Earth remained scarred, wounded, but real, no longer standing on stolen power. Admiral Voss walked through the fields outside the shattered Geneva vault. Grass grew again. The stars looked brighter. Dr. Asha Koren joined him. We lost half our reach, she said. He nodded. Then we'll build slower this time. She looked up at the sky. No more shortcuts? Voss gave a faint smile. No more gods and machines. In the void where once the rift burned only silence, and floating in that silence, a small piece of General Kane's memory, a whisper. Let them grow slow. Let them earn their fire. We are done. And the rift was never heard from again, because this time, the Deathworlders had chosen mercy.